This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station. The Property Show on BFM 89.9, the business station.
Hi there, good morning and welcome to The Property Show, just like what we have every Friday morning. I'm David Chiu with
Azura Rahman.
Now Azura, on today's Property Show, we're going to be touching on the topic of home improvement and in particular, your outdoor space.
Now, it's great that you use the phrase outdoor space or outdoor area, David, as garden may be a bit of an overreach for some of us, for most of us even.
Actually, a patch of grass would be more likely, isn't it, nowadays?
Well, for those who don't live in landed property, they don't even have that, perhaps.
Exactly.
You know? So we're focusing on creating an edible landscape for your home. And don't worry if you just got a small balcony, even as containers would also serve very well in this scenario.
Hang on. Are you talking about herbs and vegetables?
Yes, we are. But you just have to listen into my chat with Azlan Adnan, also known as Mr. Azlan the Landlord, on the benefits of creating an edible landscape for your home.
Okay.
And what exactly do you mean by an edible landscape? Is it just a kitchen garden to the rest of us?
Yeah, kitchen garden, anything that you plant that's edible, that's an edible landscape.
Right.
Traditionally in kampungs, people had edible landscape. They plant their own pandan, their own serai, kado, papaya, chilies, you know. So it's something that's not new to Malaysia. We've been doing all this while. In fact, many of the kampung gardens are also organic gardens because they're too poor or don't know of chemical fertilizers, and we don't use pesticides traditionally.
Right.
Okay, so things changed in the 60s or 70s, and people get influenced by a more industrial type of agriculture. And in the US now, there is a reaction against industrial agriculture.
So just drawing back to our own legacy here in Malaysia, there's always been that a tradition of being self-sustainable in that sense of, you know, like you say, in the kampungs, people used to plant your own food, your own crops.
Mostly been self-sufficient with food.
Yeah.
And also until maybe, say, the 60s, people didn't have fridges. So your garden was actually your store. You only pluck what you need for today and leave it to ripen or mature on the tree for tomorrow or the next day. So now, in fact, in the US, a lot of hardcore organic gardeners do not keep fridges. They say, you know, keep it on the tree until you need it.
So literally from tree to table in that sense.
Yes.
The thing is, Azlan, that is a tradition that hasn't really gone away in our society. And I say that because I have a mother who plants all manner of, you know, papaya trees and, you know, chili plants and, you know, serai, whatever it is in her garden. And I do think it's something that we haven't really gotten rid of as a tradition in this country. Do you think so?
Yes, that's true. And I think we should also make an effort that not just the Malays continue doing it, but the other races as well who may have a less of a tradition adopt this lifestyle. Actually, it's a lifestyle. We have also been influenced, like I said, with pesticides and stuff. Chemical fertilizers, you know, everybody who thinks they know anything about gardening will tell you about NPK and, you know, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and whatever chemical fertilizers that they put on their plants. But most of these chemical fertilizers that you put on your plants get washed away by the rain in runoff, and they produce algae blooms in waterways, and it's mostly wasted.
Right.
So really what we should do is to increase the fertility of the soil by allowing the microorganisms in the soil to digest the organic matter in the soil. So basically, composting, you know, lots of humus, earthworms, you know, earthworms is good news. If you have earthworms, it's good. And termites, you know, termites.
That's normally a property owner's, you know, ultimate nemesis.
Yeah, you don't want termites eating your house, but if you have, or you know, the area they lived in is a former rubber estate, there'll definitely be termites underground. They eat all the wood stumps and stuff and break it down so that these smaller microorganisms can release the nutrients for your plants to grow. So termites and fungi are good news. In fact, fungi are regarded as the teeth of nature. They gnaw at everything and break things down so that it'll be bioaccessible to the plants that you grow.
Now, the question is, Azlan, as property owners today in KL, in Klang Valley, you sometimes, end up staying in a condo or an apartment or in a flat or have very little access to a small patch of land even. So how would you create or have the possibility or access to create a kitchen garden or an edible landscape in that sense?
Okay, you can grow things in pots. That's not impossible. You need to find out whether your house is facing the east or west, whether it's dry and hot or moist, So there are plants which prefer slightly moist soil or shade. The general rule is something that you plant for its fruits or its roots need to be in full sunlight.
Okay.
If you plant something to eat the leaves, then you need to grow it in partial shade. The other thing is that there is a technique where you can make your own pots, which are self-watering. So basically, it's a little difficult to describe. It's easier to see, but basically you get one of those 1.5 or 2 liter plastic bottles, cut it into two, invert the top so that it becomes like a funnel, put your soil in there, and in the narrow part put an old sock or cotton towel. The bottom part put water. The sock acts as a wick, and then you seal it with sellotape so no mosquitoes can come in to lay eggs in the water, and you can grow onions and coriander and things like that.
All right, all manner of things in pots in that sense.
And maybe you put a straw in through the top. When I've tried it, I find those thick Slurpee straws are much better, and you water the pot through those straws, and you need to water them only every 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah?
See, that's my next question, Azlan, because I don't have the greenest thumbs. I probably have the complete opposite of green thumbs in that sense. What are the most hardiest, low maintenance plants when it comes to edible things?
Okay, the most fun things to grow are actually onions. They're very easy to grow. They're very low maintenance. They take a lot of beating.
You can grow in a pot?
They can grow in a pot, yep. And when you see the leaves come out, the spring onions, if you plant a lot, if you plant 20 bulbs, you'll find very soon you'll have more spring onion than you know what to do with. And if you let it mature and it flowers, most people haven't seen an onion flower. They're very beautiful. They're spherical, they're white. And they're very delicate. They're just marvelous to look at.
Funnily enough, onion flowers, called alliums as well, if I'm not mistaken, and they are used in posh florists in the UK, and they come in purple variety. And people don't realize that they're simply onion flowers. Actually, they are very beautiful. You're correct in that sense.
They're very delicate and they're fine structures. So.
Okay, apart from onions, anything else?
Okay, you can grow cucumbers on balconies. Cucumbers, one of the first plants I planted when I stayed in a flat in Sabah on a balcony, and I plant them in pots and they grow up the railings, and at night, if you have the patience, you just sit on a stool and stare at the tendrils. You can actually see them move. You can see them grow.
Right. It's not like watching paint dry in that sense.
No. It's actually quite fascinating. If you've ever watched the moon move, you can actually stare at the moon and watch it move very slowly. So it's that kind of pace. And what happens is cucumber tendrils do not grow in a linear fashion. They actually grow in spurts. So if you sit down quietly and you stare at it, and then you see suddenly it move. The first time I saw it, I almost fell off my stool because it's kind of alien experience that way.
I imagine it to be quite therapeutic as well.
Yeah, it is. So the other thing is, if you've many Malaysians eat durians, you can plant the seeds in a pot. And when the shoots first come out, it looks absolutely reptilian. It looks brown and it's got scales kind of thing. It's kind of freaky to look at.
I'm speaking to Mr. Azlan the Landlord. We were talking about creating edible landscapes for a property. And when we come back, we're talking a bit more about this on The Property Show.
Design Tips by Nippon Paint. When it comes to small offices, the design goal is to maximize the use of floor space while minimizing clutter, balancing style with functionality. To start, pay attention to wall paint. Pick neutral or light colors such as light green, beige, lemon, and off-white to open up the space. Avoid dark colors as they will make a small office look even smaller. When it comes to furnishings, pick a single design and color scheme and stick with it. Mismatched furniture makes small offices look disorganized and cluttered. Take advantage of natural lighting by positioning workspaces near windows. Not only will your small office feel more spacious, the natural light will keep energy and productivity levels high. Visit nipponpaint.com.my to explore thousands of colour inspirations. Nippon Paint, the paint expert.
It's Azura Rahman on the Property Show, and here with me is Azlan Adnan, also known as Mr. Azlan the Landlord, and we are talking about creating an edible landscape. Now, what are some of the more challenging plants that you should be staying away from?
If you're a beginner, don't mess about with tomatoes.
All right.
Yes. Tomatoes are very fussy. The wasps like to eat them. Snails like to eat them. You know, they are just too much bother, and you have to water them right. Can't overwater, can't like too little water. Like it hasn't rained now in about 10 days, 2 weeks, so all my tomatoes are shriveled up.
Right. What about
and I have this philosophy that I plant a whole bunch of stuff. Whatever grows best will survive, and what doesn't just
survival of the fittest.
It becomes compost. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What about chili plants? You know, chilies can become expensive, and a lot of people like to grow them in containers. Are they very difficult to do?
Oh, they're very easy. Again, I don't buy chili seeds out of packets. I go to Giant. I go to where they sell the chili kering and dig underneath. All the chili seeds will accumulate underneath. They have a counter or a low table where they put, a whole bunch of chili kering by the sack loads, and I've had a peep at the sack. Some of our chili kering come from China, some come from India, and I get them by the handful. And nobody bothers to charge me.
Nobody stopped you for it.
Me. And I ask them, and they say, yeah, help yourself.
Right.
And what I do is when it's raining, I just scatter them all over the garden, and it grows where.
And that's
when
it.
It feels like the best. Because, I have so much of the seeds. I probably got 2 kilograms each time I go. It's just scatter them about and let it grow. Yeah.
So you sound quite philosophical when it comes to planting things. Just scatter seeds around, and hopefully, if it happens, it happens. And do you think that's the best way to go about doing things?
That's the least, how do you say it, aggravation way. Okay. There is a philosophy in Japan called do nothing farming.
Right.
It's by some Japanese rebel. He's a rebel because most of the Japanese have a very organized way of farming. So he's the guy who invented mud balls that you throw. Get a whole bunch of seeds. Put it in mud and throw it about. Yeah, and I also follow a philosophy by Austrian. He takes a bucket and he puts seeds of about 30 species in it, mixes it up, and scatters and plants. So whatever finds the best soil to grow in will survive,
Right.
So I do that with my creepers. So I put bitter gourd, cucumber, loofah, patola, peria, cucumber, whatever. I put six or 8 different species, long beans, and in a bucket, and then plant it along my fence and let it grow up my fence.
Right, okay. And this is something that you also tend to do, Azlan, not just for your own private property, but you tend to also do edible landscapes for the properties that you let out as well?
Yes, it's a way of adding value to the property. Most people would prefer a property which has some plants in it. At the same time, they don't want the hassle of maintaining it, thinking, it's going to cost a lot. But if you put creepers up, like kacang botol, everybody eats it, yeah? And when you have it growing well, you get quite a lot of those beans, and people love it. It could make the difference whether you can rent the property or not.
Adds a charm to it at the very least.
Exactly.
Right?
And pandan, if you grow pandan on your property, you won't have cockroaches. I don't think it's old wives' tale. I think, in the time that I've stayed in this house, which has lots of pandan outside, I think in 6 months I've only seen 3 cockroaches. So
as a landlord, though, Azlan, and as someone who's partial to gardening, do you leave instructions to your tenants on how they can care for the plants? Does it matter to you?
Well, I tell you, interesting story. I had an intern from MMU, a student from MMU who was an intern at IBM, stay at one of my flats, and he was supposed to water my plants every week or 2 weeks, just by filling a trough with a 2-liter bottle of water. Because what I've done in the flat was I've got a planter, and in mixing the soil I put those gel, those water absorbent gels, and so all you need to do is water it, put 2 liters once a week or once in 2 weeks, and he never did. And after 3 months, I reminded him, you have to clean the toilet, otherwise you won't get the deposit back. Did you water my plants? And then he flooded my plants.
So you wouldn't plant or anything that's excessively difficult, like your tomato plants for your tenants in that sense?
No. Money plants are very easy, like they take a lot of beating. However, you can't get anything to eat out of them. You also have to be careful. There's some plants which are poisonous. I think there's a list on the internet recently about the 20 most dangerous plants. Some of them you just have to bite it and you have irreparable liver damage and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And many of them are quite common. So I can't remember offhand what they are, but
it's worth having a look at the internet.
Some plants, if a dog or cat bites it, they'll die. If children bite it, they'll die. And these are plants that you'd find around the house.
Now, Azlan, for those who'd like to find out a bit more about how they can actually, create an edible landscape, you actually have a program going on, don't you?
Oh, yes. I have a program where people can come to do some gardening, learn what it's about, get their hands dirty, as it were. If they don't have land on their own but they want to try, they can adopt a little piece of garden, one corner,
and allotment.
Plant something. Yes, an allotment and plant something, and I'll teach you how to get started. It's a very, risk-free, painless way, because if you really want to do gardening seriously, you need to get wheelbarrows, you need to get charcoal, you need to get this, that, and whatever. So I have all the stuff I could do with a helping hand in the garden. So I don't mind teaching people. There's a lot of material on YouTube which I could direct people to learn the principles and theories of things like permaculture, hugelculture, and organic gardening.
So if you want to find out more about becoming an intern for his edible landscaping team, how can people go about finding
people
more?
Can send me an email at mrazlanthelandlord@gmail.com, or find my homestay page at Facebook. It's Azlan's Eco Village Homestay. Or find me, Mr. Azlan the Landlord. I have a page for that too on Facebook.
Okay, and that was Azlan the Landlord talking about creating an edible landscape for your property on The Property Show. And if you've missed any bits of this interview at all, don't forget to download our podcast from www.bfm.my.
Very informative stuff. I guess if you are a landlord just like Azlan, you could actually add some value to your property by creating such a garden for your tenants to actually enjoy. But of course, it all depends on whether your tenants do enjoy this sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely, David. That would be my concern. I think it's very well that you want to do something that benefits your tenants. But if you're someone like me, you'd be killing those plants within a month. I've got no green thumbs at all. So
you're the one with the brown fingers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, tell you what. Why don't we furnish you property hunters right now with some possible developments, that might interest you over the weekend. Let's kick it off with.
First up, we have Diaman Residences at Puchong. That's D'(Aman). And that's in Puchong in Selangor, developed by Masteron Sdn Bhd. 419 units of service apartments on leasehold land with a built-up of 893 to 1,300 square feet, starting from 350,000 ringgit. That would be too much of a bargain. But this seems to be quite reasonable as well, with a maintenance fee of 20 cents per square foot.
That's not too bad. The other one over in Cyberjaya Selangor is what we're looking at. Yeah, it's called Crystal Residence. This one developed by this company called Trientel Land Sdn Bhd, who is part of the Villa Mas Group, right? This particular development consists of 350 units of condos and villas, and it's all on freehold land. Built up is between 1,300 to 3,189 square feet. All right, prices start from very affordable, 1 million, 1.069 million actually, to about 1.23 million.
So Cyberjaya really hotting up there.
Exactly. And that's about it for the show for this week. Next week, again, join us on Thursdays and Fridays. Thursdays is when we have Ringgit and Cents, and Fridays for the Property Show. So till then.
The Property Show on BFM 89.9, the business station. Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.